Hi there everyone and welcome to another episode of the Simple Knit Podcast. My name is Eleanor. You can find me on Instagram as Simple Knit Co and here on YouTube where I hang out and share with you all of the things that I'm currently making. It's mostly knitting, sometimes some other craft, but usually knitting based content. So if that sounds like your thing, welcome. To all my returning viewers, as always, it's a pleasure to have you here. It's great to see you again. And if this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome. I hope you enjoy. I always appreciate people taking some time out of their day to spend with me geeking out over knitting. I feel like I've started this podcast about 700 times because it is around probably now about 1:30, 1:45 on a Saturday afternoon in Brisbane, Australia, where I live. And so it's a Saturday, so everyone's doing yard work. All of the birds in our area seem to have gone insane. They're so loud, but I'm not starting again. So if a loud car drives past or a kookaburra starts screaming in the background, you'll just get to enjoy that ambient noise because I'm not starting again. I feel like I've started it, as I said, about 700 times. So pour yourself a drink. I've just got some water because it is so hot. It is late February, so it's technically the last couple of days of summer. In Australia, for whatever reason, our seasons change on the 1st of the month. So the 1st of March is technically the first day of autumn, but especially up here in Brisbane, March is really just another month of summer. It's quite overcast today and it's not quite as hot as it was yesterday, but it is so freaking humid. It feels like I live in a swamp. But I looked at the radar, it's not going to rain, it's just overcast and it feels like it's about to rain, but it's not going to. So it's just damp would be the word I use to describe the weather at the moment. It's been quite rainy as well recently, so the earth is very moist, there's a lot of moisture in the air, and it's just sweaty. No one loves 80% humidity. I think the ambient temperature is a bit less than yesterday. I think the ambient temperature is about 33. It probably is only about 30 degrees, but it feels like about 33 with the humidity. So you can watch my hair. I did just wash my hair this morning, but you'll watch it slowly become very raggedy over the next 15 minutes or so while I share with you the things that I have been knitting. So grab a drink. Sorry, a bit of cucumber from my water just went in my mouth. I'm just going to eat it. Okay, grab yourself a drink and let's talk some knitting. I have one finished project and two works in progress that you have not seen before. After saying in the last episode 2 weeks ago that I hadn't really been knitting very much, I managed to magically, by saying that, make myself into a knitting machine. So the first project I have to show you is my finished object, and I'm so thrilled. It's properly finished, ends woven in, blocked, photographed on Instagram, all the deets in my Ravelry project page, completely done. It is my Deliciosa sweater. So it's so beautiful. So this is a pattern by Nora Garn for Brooklyn Tweed, their Tear collection, which was their autumn collection last year, I think. And it's this cropped drop shoulder pullover with this amazing leaf motif print. I made this jumper out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, the worsted weight, in the colorway Everglade Heather. I knit the size 3 in the cropped length, which looks like this. And I knit it basically exactly to the pattern, except I did make the sleeves a teensy bit longer because I do like my sleeves to be extra long, and also because I've got these nice little, I think I knit the ribbing a bit longer on the cuffs as well, so if the length does bother me, I can just roll them up like that. but it's nice and long. I will put this on for you just so you can have a look at what it looks like, and then I'll talk you through the construction. But as I may have mentioned earlier, it's very hot, so I think I can last about 3 minutes in this jumper before I turn into the Wicked Witch of the West, but I'll do it. I'll do it for YouTube, so bear with me 1 second. You'll get to see this jumper in action. Alright, so I've knelt a little bit further back from the camera so you can get the idea of how it fits. I do have also a picture on Instagram of me wearing it, if you want to have a look at that. But as you can see, it is a really nice cropped length. This skirt, I'm wearing all black so you can't really see, but this skirt sits right on the narrowest part of my waist, and the jumper finishes right there. Most of my skirts and my trousers sit at about this height, so it is kind of the ideal length to wear over high-waisted things for me. I also think I will get a lot of wearing this over dresses. So this is the kind of the perfect length that it sits right at my waist, so wearing it over dresses will look really, really cute. As you can see, I did lengthen the sleeves, so they do come down like right over my hands when they're, that didn't help, they were off camera, but when they're pulled down, they do come right over my hands. The sleeves are nice and fitted, and yeah, it's a really nice boxy length. Now, the only thing I would probably change about knitting this would be, I don't know why I'm sitting like I'm about to run at you. The only thing I would maybe modify, there's no short row shaping in this, and I'm not sure if that's a thing with like this shape. I don't know enough about knitwear design to really understand, but I reckon you could probably add a few short rows to the back when you pick up the stitches for the collar. That would just make the back neck sit a little bit higher. It's just 2x2 ribbing, so in that bit it would be quite easy, rather than somewhere in the body with all of the cable detail. Trying to add short rows into that I think would be quite difficult, but in the collar section I think you definitely could. But yeah, I love the fit. It's kind of exactly what I wanted. I think I may have, just out of impatience, knit the body 1 centimetre or 2 shorter than the pattern suggests, but I did block it pretty aggressively for length when I blocked. So, and this is a non-superwash yarn, so it responded really well to being blocked with some force. So yeah, I'm really happy with the fit. As you can see, it's really cute over this. I'm just wearing a little like mini skirt today, and actually over like a mini skirt like this, well, in winter in Brisbane is kind of the perfect amount of clothing, because it's just in the early 20s most days. So I'm thrilled for when the temperature drops, but I'm going to take it off, and all further chit chat will be done without wool on my person in this weather. So 1 second. All right, so I'm back. I've put my hair up so you can't see how sweaty it is, and I did actually have to like peel it off my body, even only wearing it for those couple minutes. But that'll be great for the winter. And I will say that this yarn, it is like Peruvian wool, so it's a woolly wool yarn, and it's non-superwash. But even I have quite sensitive skin, and even wearing it in this heat, it was a tiny bit scratchy, but I could have, even around my neck, was completely tolerable, even when it's this hot, which is usually, it's in the heat that when it's too hot for wool, that wool is its most scratchy. And if this is its most scratchy, it is a really, really lovely yarn. So just trying to think if there is anything else I wanted to say about this. As I said, I did knit it exactly to the pattern proportions, basically, of the cropped size for the size 3. I did, except for the sleeves, I think the sleeves are about 1 centimetre or 2 longer than the pattern, than was in the pattern, but I did that on purpose, because that's the one thing I always find with my hand knit jumpers. I think because by the time I'm on the sleeves, I just want it to be done. The sleeves are always slightly shorter than I want them to be, so I'm making more of a conscious effort with full length sleeve garments to really knit the sleeves to length, because I don't think my arms are long, but maybe they are for my height. I don't know. Do I have long limbs? I'm not sure, but yeah, that's the Deliciosa sweater. I did Tubular cast-ons and cast-offs on all the hems. Even though it's 2x2 rib, it's very easy. There's heaps of YouTube tutorials, very easy to convert your 2x2 rib. So you can do a tubular cast on and cast off. I think that's all I have to say about this jumper, other than the fact that I love it, and I would love for the temperature to drop about 20 degrees so I could wear this every day. But yeah, I highly recommend this pattern. I think it is, I think I've said before, probably not for like your first cable jumper or your first time trying to read charts, because the chart repeat is quite long. But if you've knit a couple of jumpers before and you're or you're just up for a challenge, I mean, I think any project can be your first project if you want it to be. So I highly recommend it. I did it in the lovely classic jungly green, which very much leans into the leaf motif. I think it would be really lovely in like a golden or an orange color. Would be a really beautiful like autumn garment. You could do it in like a pale white or a really icy blue, would make it look really wintry. I've seen there are some projects on Ravelry that are a really dark brown, and it looks gorgeous in that as well. So just be creative, and I highly recommend it. Seriously, I think everyone should knit this. It is just so cool and it's so satisfying. I kind of keep looking at it and it's one of those projects I can't quite believe that I made this. So yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled. Highly recommend knitting a Deliciosa sweater, or any Noragan pattern. Her patterns are all absolutely stunning. And I'll also say, I think this is some of the best seaming that I've ever done. So on the shoulders, I don't know if you'll be able to see. On the shoulders here, yeah. So this, I used after a few false starts that were entirely my own fault, I used the top to top seaming method that is on the Brooklyn Tweed. There's like a seaming 101 guide on that, and there's a method that's the top to top seaming method, which is what the pattern recommends, and it works really well. I did see on some people's Ravelry projects that when they did the front and back, on one of them they knit the chart in the opposite direction so that when it got to the shoulders they would match up better. But I mean, if you really want to do that, go for it. But I could not be bothered. But I still think, even though the pattern like kind of doesn't match up perfectly, the shoulder seams look great. And on the sides here, I reckon this is the best mattress stitch I've ever done in my life. It is just really smooth and seamless. On the inside, it looks real. It's like there's the ridge, but it's a really nice small one. And even here on the ribbing, if I flip around one more time, you really can't tell where the seam is, which is how mattress stitch is supposed to be, and how mine has never ever turned out before. So I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely stoked with that. Oh, and the only other modification I did make was I knit the sleeves in the round instead of flat. So I seamed up the side to the measurements in the pattern, and then just picked up the sleeve stitches and knit them on a 12-inch circular needle. When I got down to the ribbing, it was kind of, I think this is about the smallest possible circumference I could knit on a 3.75 millimeter 12-inch 12-inch circular needle. Excuse me. Like, it was kind of had to pull it around a little bit aggressively, but you could still do it. It was probably, as I said, 1 or 2 stitches fewer and it wouldn't have worked, but I did it. And yeah, I think that's everything now. Finally, I also did a really good job picking up the neckband. Like, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but like, beep beep, I did a really good job. Probably, once again, probably the best neckband pickup that I've ever done as well. So I'm thrilled with this jumper and just really proud of my workmanship, and I can't quite believe that I made this beautiful thing. So yeah, feel free to leave me praise in the comments below. And I will now share with you my 2 works in progress, which you have not seen either of these. I had not cast them on last time I spoke to you. But which one will I start with? Yeah, let's go with this one first. I have made this project before in this yarn twice, so I won't talk about it too much. But this is the Beach Tank by Jess Schreibstein from Mild Woman. I'm knitting it in Wool and the Gang Tina Tape yarn, which is a 100% lyocell tencel yarn. This colorway is called Moss Green, and it's this really pretty, like really golden, olivey, khaki kind of green. I love this color. It's one of my favorite colors, and I realized when I put my knitting down yesterday that it's exactly the same color as the covers on my lounge room chairs. So I think it might be a color that I like just a little bit. But this is how much progress I have made. It's amazing how fast stockinette in the round in a worsted weight yarn on a 5.5 millimeter needle goes. So I'm already on my 2nd skein. Usually this pattern takes me about 2.5 skeins of this yarn. So I'm already on well into my 2nd skein that I just dropped on the floor. And I'm just loving how it looks. I did a tubular cast on, and I actually went down a needle size for my tubular cast on. Because for this pattern you don't use a smaller needle for the ribbing. You use just the same main body size for the ribbing. Usually when I go down a needle size to do ribbing, I'll just use the ribbing needle to do my tubular cast on, which you're not supposed to do. You're meant to go down another size, but I never bother. But this time, because last time I made this, I did a tubular cast on and it wasn't super neat. I did go down to a 5 millimeter needle to do the tubular. And yeah, it looks way neater than it did on my navy one that I made last year. So yeah, I did knit, I think I knit the ribbing slightly longer than the pattern recommends. It is slightly more than I have done on my other ones, just because I think that looked good. I do plan on knitting the body slightly longer. My last 2 I've just made exactly to the pattern specifications, but both of them I have made the shoulder straps longer than the pattern recommends. This time I'm going to try doing the shorter straps to see, like, having it sit a bit higher on my chest I think could be really cute, so I'm going to do shorter straps. But to compensate for that, because I do have a larger bust, so things do tend to ride up higher on my body. I don't have a super long torso, but because I do have more circumference, it does jack things up a little bit, particularly at the front of my garments. So I'm going to knit the body a little bit longer. I haven't even looked at the pattern to remember how long I'm supposed to knit the body, but yeah, this is about 19-20 centimeters at the moment. I'll probably knit it to be about 30 centimeters before I do, or until I get bored, before I start doing the shaping for the front and the back. So this has just been the project that I've been carrying around in my handbag, and honestly most of this, I think probably to about there. Last weekend I caught the train a couple of times and watched a documentary with my friend, and that was the extent of the time I spent on it, and I managed to get heaps of progress. So I'm thinking, excuse me, just picking up my yarn, I'm thinking I will finish this quite promptly, and I'm really thrilled because I think it is just so pretty, and given that it's this hot, I will still get quite a bit of wear out of it before autumn finally comes. We don't really get autumn, it just kind of goes straight from summer to winter in about 2.5 weeks, and we're far enough, we're close up to the equator that we don't really get like falling leaf plants or anything, if you were wondering about Brisbane climate, which was that was a bad run-on sentence. I apologize. People that know me in my personal life will know that that is kind of a standard Eleanor sentence, but that is also the Beach Tank by Jess Schreibstein. So the other work in progress I have, dropped my yarn again, Eleanor Rose. The other work in progress I have, I'm literally about, I think I'm 4 rows and a bind off away from finishing. So this is, will I show you? Yeah, I'll just show you this is a shawl well, a shawlette. It's just a little shawl. It'll end up being a triangle that will kind of be like more of a kerchiefy kind of size. It's in this dark grey, and I love it so much. Clearly I had the biggest craving just to be doing some simple stockinette with not much thought. So I just cast on 2 projects that filled that void for me, and I just can't stop knitting on both of them. So I meant to actually film this podcast this morning, but I couldn't stop knitting on this shawl. So this pattern is the Squishy Shawlette by my friend Bronte Swanwick. And it is really lovely. It's just this plain triangular stockinette shawl it's just in stockinette, and then it has a ribbed border that I've just started. And this is the smaller size, so I'm knitting it. This is the size that's designed to be knit in, it's meant to be knit in fingering weight yarn. I am using a sport weight yarn, but it is actually quite pretty light for a sport weight yarn. So the yarn I'm using is, I had 2 skeins of this yarn left over from a jumper that I made a couple of years ago. I made this jumper way before I even had a podcast. So it was the Hay sweater by another friend of mine, Claire Mountain. And because I think when I made that, I didn't check my gauge, and I was at a smaller gauge. So I had 2 skeins of this gorgeous yarn left over, and it's, here we go. I'm very all over the place. It's the Fiber Company Road to China Light. It is a blend of baby alpaca, camel, cashmere, and silk. So it is insanely soft and squishy and gorgeous. This is the hematite colorway. And yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful. It is just so, that's the end there. That is just so stunning. And as I said, I had these 2 skeins. It comes in 50 gram skeins. So I think it's, 145 meters per 50 gram skein. So it's a sport weight yarn. And I haven't really known exactly what to do with it, because it is, you can probably tell from that fiber content, it is just insanely drapey, but I didn't have a huge amount of yardage, so it wasn't kind of enough for most standard shawl patterns, and it's not the kind of yarn, it wouldn't really work for a hat. So it's just kind of been sitting there for a couple of years, and I haven't really known what to do with it. And as I said, last weekend I was just really craving casting on just a simple stockinette pattern, and I remembered that Bronte had released this shawl last year, and I was looking through the yarn that I already have to cast on, and I found this. I checked my yardage and the yarn needs for the pattern, and it was a perfect match. So I think it's going to be, it is absolutely beautiful. The fabric is just so dreamy. So this is, as I said, it's the smaller size of the Squishy Shawlette pattern, and it's designed for a fingering weight yarn, but knit on a 6mm needle. So it has this really beautiful, I don't know if you can see, I was actually a little bit worried about the gauge because the needle is so big, and I don't know if this is just because I'm doing with a sport weight, but it's like a loose gauge, but I thought it would be much more like transparent, holy kind of, but it's not. It's still a really nice, the fabric is just absolutely beautiful, and the drape on this yarn is just next level. It's so beautiful, which just works so well with this pattern. There are 2 sizes in the pattern. The larger size, I'm pretty sure you just knit a very similar stitch count, but you do it on a bigger needle with a 10-ply yarn. So that's also great if you have some 10-ply, like some worstedy, Aarony yarn in your stash. But this is what mine looks like. And as you can see, the way that you do the increases, let's hold it so it's right way up, because I feel like I can show it better. But the way that you do the increases creates this really beautiful spine down the center of the shawl, which I just think is so elegant. And yeah, it's just so simple. You really don't need to be tied to the pattern at all. Once you've done a couple of rows and you get in the groove of where your increases go, you can just knit away. And I was actually a little bit worried about my tension on this because it is a looser gauge, and this yarn doesn't, the fiber content of this yarn really is not very elastic. I was really worried, kind of looking at my tension, but now that I look at it on the finished thing, you can see on the pearl bumps, they're really nice and even. So I really had nothing to worry about. Yeah, I thought my gauge was much more, because it's knit flat, I thought my gauge was much more inconsistent, but it's actually turned out really, really lovely and really perfect. So I just have a few more, I think 4 more rows. Yeah, 4 more rows of ribbing, and then I bind off, and then I finish this gorgeous shawl. Highly, highly recommend this pattern. It is really just so simple and elegant, but just put together so nicely. Would be a great beginner pattern if you're just looking to get into shaping and increases and things. Never knit a shawl before. This would be an awesome, awesome pattern, and it would look great if you have like, it would be if you have like a 100 gram skein of fingering weight yarn that's quite special. I think that would be a great thing to do with this project as well. A great project for that yarn, because it would use up a good proportion, I reckon, of your 100 grams of fingering weight yarn. Actually, maybe it would only take 50, because I don't think I'm going to need, I am going to have to go into my second skein, because I think this is all I've got left of the first skein, so I think I will need to go into my second. But even, I reckon, 50 grams of fingering weight yarn, you could get this pattern out of that. So if you have, yeah, some special fingering weight yarn, it would be a beautiful showcase, because it's just so simple. It really lets a beautiful drapey yarn just absolutely sing. And as I said, the pattern is great. Bronte is great, so even if you don't want to make it, maybe just buy the pattern, because Bronte is fantastic. So yeah, that is my shawl, and that's everything that I've been working on. As I said, I just had this craving to just be knitting on really kind of simple, mindless stockinette, that kind of knitting that just keeps your hands busy, but you don't need too much brain power. Maybe it's because of the heat, but I feel kind of like a wilted flower at the moment. But both of these projects, and as you can see, I've kind of flown through them, working on these beautiful yarns on nice thick needles has just been an absolute dream. And I'm very, very pro knitting at the moment. I mean, I'm always pretty pro knitting, but at the moment I am 100% think everyone should knit. I mean, they don't have to, but yeah, very, very, very in love with my knitting at the moment. So tell me what you're working on. Are there any projects that you would like to share? Do you have any projects that you finished and thought, wow, I cannot believe that I made that? I would love to hear about it and see pics. So hit me up on Instagram, leave a comment down below. I always love hearing from you and hearing what you're making, what's going on in your part of the world. I hope that wherever you are safe and healthy and taking care of yourself and the people around you. And yeah, I will see you in the next episode. Bye guys.